Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to see everybody joining us here. My name is Olga Tamanova, and Ukrainian Media Center confirm continues its operation. It's been 10 years of the war, and today's day 580 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And traditionally, I want to thank all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our fight for freedom. Today, we have invited you to talk about a very important topic. What we're about to talk today is the entrance exams next year 2024. So today we will be talking about the admission campaign and about the external independent testing of our kids, school children, what will be the format, what will be the mechanisms in place. So today we're about to find out all the details. I would like to introduce our speakers today. It's Sergei Babak, Chair of Verkhovna Rada Education, Science and Innovations Committee. Also joining us is Mikhailo Vinitsky, Deputy Minister of Education and Science of Ukraine, and Tatiana Vakulenko, Director of the Ukrainian Center for Educational Quality Assessment. So let's start with you, Mr. Mikhailo. Let's talk about the format of the assessment of our school children next year, how it will be set up. And then let's talk about the legislative background. Let me start from the small joke, but we don't assess the school children, we assess their knowledge. Assessment of children is beyond our competence. Well, look, we have to understand that in year 2022, we were the first in Ukraine to apply under the emergency procedure, the national multi-subject test. We've withdrawn from external independent testing, and we resorted to the only computerized test that assesses the knowledge of the school children. And in year 23, this experiment was significantly improved, and in year 24, we're about to move on. The format that we had, it was 2 mandatory disciplines, and now we add 1 more. So the format of national multi-subject test will be 3 + 1: Ukrainian language, mathematics, history of Ukraine, and 1 discipline of a child choice. I want to pay attention to, or draw your attention to the format. Tatiana will give you more details about that. But here we're talking about the 4 disciplines to be added to 1 test. So it's gonna be 2 hours, a break, then 2 hours more. It's an intense load on the children, we understand it, but on the other hand, we have to understand that it's the workload of the higher education that is equal to higher education. So here we're talking about 4 hours of testing, 4 disciplines per 1 day. First of all, what we want to ensure is the safety and security, which means that the testing will go on not all around the country in 1 day, but it will be extended in time. But we're moving towards what is the standard in European Union today. And the standard is to examine 5 disciplines as the child graduates the school. In Poland, they examine 5 disciplines, and in other jurisdictions there are even more tests. So we check the knowledge of school children who are about to enter the higher educational institutions. So probably my colleague from the parliament. So the first question, why not external independent testing? Why not EIT? Because first of all is the safety and security issue, and I want to remind you that the format of EIT was that the whole country within 1 day was passing a test on 1 discipline. And given the martial law in effect today, it's virtually impossible to do it. And talking about national multi-subject test, it's the EIT but in a different testing. So that was external independent testing, and what we do is external independent testing in a different format. It's not 1 discipline test, but it's a multi-subject test. Thank you. Mr. Sergei, how this initiative will be supported by our legislation? Well, very simply, we need to add one more law that will regulate the admission campaign this year, because in our legislation it's set forth how the external independent testing will be going on, what will it be consisting of as a mechanism. So now we make this amendment. It's been registered with the parliament right now, that will regulate the national multi-subject test in year 2024. Thank you very much. Ms. Tatiana, let's talk about the mechanics of this test, how it will be going on the next year. Yeah, of course, everybody knows what is national multi-subject test, what it was looking like the year before, and the year before that. Everybody understands that it's a computer online test, and the biggest addition is the one mentioned by Mr. Mikhailo. Now we have not 3 but 4 disciplines. History of Ukraine becomes mandatory now, and I have to say that we don't talk about the entire historic period, but we're talking about the period from century 16 until now, because we want our school children to be aware the best about the history of Ukraine, what were the premises for this horrible war, how it happened, so that we are in this point, in this historic point, in this situation with Russia. So this is why we don't cover the entire historic period, because it will be more difficult for our school children to understand the whole spectrum of the history of Ukraine. Also, we expand the number of disciplines, of optional disciplines. Before the year 2024, we had an option of Ukrainian language, Ukrainian literature as a one discipline. And now, for those who will enter philological specialties, we added Ukrainian literature as a separate discipline. Then we add geography. Then the content will be in compliance with the program of external independent testing. So this year we shouldn't expect more questions to be added. All of the programs that are, or the curricula that are currently approved, they will contain all the answers to all the questions on the testing. As Mr. Mikhailo said, there will be 2 hours of work, then a break, then 2 hours more. About the duration of the break we will inform you later, but please don't count on a very long break. The school children will have enough time to use a bathroom, to switch their brains to a different task. So this year we expect to start the testing in May, because this year we cannot afford 2 shifts because the test becomes longer. This is why we need more days to cover that number of potential students of the higher educational institutions, of those who want to enter them. So next year we expect to see more students passing the tests, and within 1 session the participant will get 4 results for entering their higher educational institutions, given the fact that among those who participate will be the school children from the areas of intense battle operations, those who live in temporarily occupied areas, and those who are currently abroad. This is why we cannot increase the number of days for such participants, because they will need to get to the temporarily examination centers deployed. And we understand that the situation with the air raid alert may not become better. If we have more days, it may mean that the participants will have to come to more and more testing sessions, which will be incredibly difficult for everybody. The testing will be in temporary examination centers. They will be deployed in educational institutions, and we appreciate the input of all the educational institutions and all the employees of pedagogical sector who helped us and supported us this year. And the way it is set up in the temporary examination center defines the quality of assessment. the bandwidth of internet, the training of teachers, and their readiness to fight the cheating is something that defines the result. Well, given the absence of a red alert, the test will continue normally, but in case of a red alert, the participants will have to go to the shelter and then come back to the auditorium. We didn't use the metal detectors this time, but at the same time we've seen that this tactic was not quite correct, because many participants were trying to use their cell phones, which distorted the quality of testing. Next time we will improve the security measures in testing centers, and we will use the metal detectors too. The content, the structure of the test books, how to sign up and what to do, we will report all the information in the website of the Ukrainian Center of Quality of Education Assessment. This time the tests will be online. The participants will be able to check themselves at home to understand what they should work on, what topics they should pay more attention to. And as to the content of the basic information, all the journalists present here today will be able to get all this information from the infographics and to download the information from our website, from Ukrainian Education Quality Assessment Center. So let's proceed to this question. It's important for everybody who listens to us. So this year the model of national multi-subject test is the first step towards the return of final state examination, and this examination was going on in the educational institutions based on the instruments developed by such educational institutions. Starting from the next year, we want to make a small experiment. There will be no more than 2,000 participants in those educational institutions who are ready, who want to cooperate with us. And what we are about to offer to the school children taking part in the experiment, we will offer something developed by us, the materials developed by us, the Center for Educational Quality Assessment, and we will also offer the recommendations for the teachers who will undergo the test on mathematics and Ukrainian literature, and then we'll gather information how comfortable was it for teachers to undergo this testing, whether there was problem with test tasks, and this information will allow us to make another steps towards implementation of standardized final state examinations for the school children. So we're not talking about EIT, that we will have any instructors in educational institutions, there will be some supervision. No. What we're talking about is to provide the educational institutions with the same tools, with the same ways to analyze information based on the results obtained. We're talking about standardization of context and procedures of assessment, what it gives to the state. When the state final state examination will be implemented, the government will be ready to, or will be able to get the understanding of condition of education sphere and what steps to make to improve it, and the local governments will be more ready to react the needs of educational institutions that way. As to this final state examination, it will be the first step. Then we will make more steps to implement final state examination for basic school education, primary school education, and so on and so forth. We will keep you posted. Well, getting back to the topic of final state examination, you said that the test questions will be posted shortly, so when should we expect it? As soon as there will be legislation adopted on national multi-subject test, we will give you the optional questions. But on the report on the results of the NMT 2023, all the information was given, and to the applicants who want to see the basic structure of questions are recommended to get familiarized with the information on our website. They can orient to those materials already posted on our website. Well, let's talk about the categories of children who are currently outside the territory under Ukrainian control. Let's talk about those who are abroad. So how can they use this opportunity? How many centers do you plan to deploy outside Ukraine? Well, if I may, it should be a pride of Ukraine. More than 20,000 potential applicants were passing the national multi-subject test being abroad. Why I'm talking about the pride? Because there is no reason for them to pass the national multi-subject test unless you want to apply to a Ukrainian higher educational institution, which means that children who are currently abroad, who have all the opportunities to enter non-Ukrainian educational institutions, still they declare that they want to enter Ukrainian higher educational institutions. So it should be of pride to us. We have stereotypes that Ukrainian education system is incompetitive, it's wrong, it's different, it doesn't play well with the European standards, so it's all not true. If our applicants staying abroad pass the national multi-subject test, again, this is something that we should take pride in, which evidences a good quality of our higher education. So last year it was about 20,000. Now we see that the number will be less because a large number of our citizens are coming back to Ukraine. Is a positive indicator, but there will be some number, and about this number the National Educational Quality Assessment Center can tell us more. And we appreciate the work of our foreign partners for giving us the opportunity to deploy the testing centers abroad. So talking about the admission campaign from the occupied territories, we have to understand that just like previous year, in year 2024, the application will be possible upon interviews for those applying from temporarily occupied territories. We all hope that next September, or at the moment of application, we're talking about July here, that the occupied territories will be something non-existent. But if they will still exist, the applicants from temporarily occupied territories will be able to enter using interview and not upon passing the NMT. So talking about the number of examination centers abroad, it's difficult to give you the number so far, but again, we have to set up the partnerships with all those countries. In year 23, we were working with the representatives of 32 countries of the world, basically all of Europe and United States of America, Canada, Azerbaijan, and we hope that those countries will continue cooperating with us further on. And to talk about the expansion of the number of countries where we will be holding the national multi-subject test is not something on our agenda, because every such center is opened abroad is a challenge in terms of security issues and compatibility of results of testing. So we engage Ukrainian speaking specialists there, and the majority of our colleagues there are the teachers who left, and we have to train them. We have to work through all the technological aspects of assessment with them to ensure the compatibility of procedures in Ukraine and abroad. We don't intend to expand so far, and we just expect the countries who worked with us to continue such cooperation. Mr. Tana, and talking about the temporarily occupied territories, what will be the mechanics of the interviews? So children staying in temporarily occupied territories, they have to submit application or something like that. Yes, in the temporarily occupied territories or in the territories of active battle operations, the testing, neither NMT nor the admission exams is something that can happen. We cannot risk the lives of the applicants and the lives of the professors. But talking about the interview, Mr. Mr. Mikhailo will tell you more. Well, we have two centers, Crimea, Ukraine, and Donbass, Ukraine, which enable applications from temporarily occupied territories. Unfortunately, this year we had very little number of such applicants. We understand the reasons. Physically, it's difficult to start the education in September, but the option still exists for them, and we will continue this opportunity for them so that the applicants can enter the higher educational institutions in Ukraine, even regardless of the fact that they stay in temporarily occupied territories for the time being. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Please join our conversation if you have any questions. Good afternoon, Natalia Molchalova, Ukrinform. So if the national multi-subject test starts in May, then when the registration is going to happen, given the fact that we add another optional discipline and you need to print, for what I understand, the materials for this test, since the testing will be online, we will not have to print out the materials, but we will start the registration earlier. Obviously, we will have the calendars by the end of this year. They will be posted in the website of Ukrainian Center for Educational Quality Assessment. I cannot give you the exact date, but the registration will be happening a little bit earlier, using the software complexes of Ukrainian Center for Education Quality Assessment. The registration will be online. Scanning of documents probably will be required, but for sure there will be no requirement to send the documents via mail or something like that. This year the registration was going on under upgraded procedure. We see that it worked for both participants and organizers, and that there were no even minor issues with registration from abroad. And just to add a couple of words, if I may, regarding the schedule, I really wanted to use this opportunity to emphasize and to thank specifically to Mr. Sergei and the parliamentary committee and the parliament in general, because one remark that existed last year was that the applicants didn't know what to get prepared to previous year. I hope that this year September is not yet over, but we already know that we will have, well, we still need to adopt the law. Well, we need to adopt the law, but the situation is clear here. We understand what is proposed by the ministry, what is proposed by the parliament. I think the applicants can count on the format that they understand, 3+1. And if I may, just another question regarding the final state examination. What you, Mr. Tanya, have just said, for what I understand, there will be a review of the idea of this final state examination as it is, given the fact that there was a study in grades 6 and 9s, and it was identified that the quality of knowledge degraded significantly there. So how are we going to assess all those children studying in schools now, the quality of their knowledge? Is there an opportunity to revert to final state examination in grade 9 and probably in grade 11? Well, it's a good question, which really consists of two big parts. Talking about FSE, we have something registered with the parliament when we were adopting the law on this year's admission campaign. So there is an initiative to revert to final state examination in expanded format. So now that the draft law is already prepared, that I hope will be adopted simultaneously with this law that we were discussing just now, which contemplates the mandatory final state examination for 3 levels of education. So primary school, secondary school, and at graduation. So it will be 4 mandatory disciplines: Ukrainian language, English language, mathematics, and history. For primary school, it will be a monitoring testing, not like a final state examination. It will be consistent of mathematics and Ukrainian language. This is what we want to put on the main way. We want to revert to final state examination the soonest possible. It's an important element. The government will have the instrument of assessment, the knowledge on 3 levels of education to adopt new management decision on improvement of this or that link. This is talking about the final state examination. Another part of your question is probably even more profound. It's about the educational losses. There was really a monitoring survey in grade 6 and 8 which demonstrated serious gaps in knowledge with children within the last years, which is obviously due to the full-scale aggression. A lot of children have become internally displaced person. Part of the children left abroad. Another fraction of them did not have an opportunity to study because of the occupation, or even if they were in Ukrainian controlled territory, they were not able to continue the curriculum processes respectively. So yes, there are educational gaps, and we, in cooperation with the Ukrainian Center for Educational Quality Assessment, had a joint session, and we developed a number of management solutions to overcome those educational gaps. We work on it. There is a lot of tools developed by the Ukrainian Center for Educational Quality Assessment and many civil organizations. So we have an expanded set of tools which is available to the teachers now, so they can use it in overcoming the training and educational gaps in children. If I may add a very important remark, Mr. Sergey did not say about this main way for reverting to final state examination. So in year 24 there will be no final state examination of grades 6 and 9. It's due to a number of reasons. So talking about the grade 9, the new Ukrainian school has not yet come to the grade 9, and testing in the grade 9 will be under the old program, old curriculum, and it's not feasible given the conditions. It's not gonna produce the relevant effect. I just want to make it clear for our listeners and all of the journalists. The main way line, we revert to 3 levels of final state examination, but in 2024 it will be only a pilot for grade 4 and for those applying to the higher educational institution. For the rest, the final state examination is not envisaged. Yeah, there were proposals, there were numerous, to implement the final state examination at the graduation stage, but it will not be in place there, as Mr. Mikhailos said, because we understand that the fraction of those entering higher educational institutions is not 100%. A large fraction of those who graduate from schools, they do not enter higher educational institutions. They reside in the countries where the test is not going to take place, or they live in the conditions that do not allow them to reach the testing centers in the territory of Ukraine. So here we're only talking about the admission. Dear friends, do we have any more questions? Katerina Dorish, Ukrainska Pravda. I have a question about the breaks for NMT. There was a report on the Telegram channel of the break which will be 60 seconds, but you just mentioned that the break will be shorter. Well, it will be shorter than 60 minutes. It will be about 20 minutes. I think it was just a typo in the Telegram channel. Thank you very much, dear friends. Do we have any more questions on the floor regarding the assessment system? Well, it seems like there are no more questions. I would like to remind all of our spectators and listeners that all of the information will be posted. Ms. Tatiana, please remind us. Yes, it's Ukrainian Center for Educational Quality Assessment website, test.portal.gov.ua. It's a section for admission campaign 23, admission campaign 22. So the same section will be for year 2023. We had the same tests on an annual basis. It will be a separate section though, which will contain all of the necessary information about the terms of registration, what documents and which way are supposed to be submitted, so you can sign up, the information on the structure of tests, and demo versions of the test online form. forms that can also be downloaded. If you have slow internet, you can experiment at home and find the test or pass the tests at home. The participants will be signing up in their accounts, and in their accounts they will be able to pick the countries where they will pass the testing. If it's happening outside Ukraine, or if it's happening inside Ukraine, then they will be able to pick the settlements. It's not like the participants can choose the centers. It's impossible. It allows us to avoid possible security threats, because when the participants choose their examination centers, it results in risks that we are not able to mitigate or overcome. Unfortunately, dear friends, thank you very much for your interest in this topic. We hope that this year everything is going to be smooth in terms of assessment of knowledge of our school children, and we continue working for our victory. Right now, our team is putting together the schedule for tomorrow, so please follow our announcements, stay tuned, and we want to thank our armed forces for having this opportunity to hold events like this. Glory to Ukraine!